And welcome to Abundant Retirement Podcast with me, Tony Roberts. And as always, we are so glad to have you with us here today. Joined, as usual, is my sidekick, working out of our marketing home office up in Minneapolis, Mr. Tony Shore. And as always, it's a pleasure, Tony, to have you here with us today to guide us in the right direction of some of these questions that you always have for me that we hopefully get to address that our listeners and viewers will have a little more insight as to what's going on out there in the world of financial and retirement planning, and sometimes, Tony, I know I've known you well enough and long enough that sometimes we get off on some side tangents that maybe are worth talking
Well,
about too.
sure,
So
sure.
so anyway, welcome, my friend. Good to be back with you. I know we've had a couple of weeks that we've been away, but it's nice to be back in the chair and talking about planning and hopefully maybe giving some of our tidbits out to the listeners that could be of some help going down the road.
Well, for sure. And thanks for having me on your show, Tony. This is always fun getting together with you each week. We talk about what we've been doing, we talk about Mother's Day and trips we've taken. We've had a busy couple of weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the market's had a busy couple of weeks, a busy year so far. And, we've talked on previous shows about the market volatility and the tariffs. Well, before there was a lot of negativity around the tariffs in the markets. Today, we can actually talk about the positivity of
Yeah.
the latest, as of the recording of this show on Monday, May 12th. The news, the markets reacted today to the deal that we've made with China.
Yeah.
Supposedly, if everything goes well, the deal with China is going to go through and to reduce tariffs there. And boy, the markets reacted quite well, wouldn't you say?
Oh my gosh, yes. And Tony, it's I've been doing this 40 years, man, and I've seen it, and I've seen it come and go, and our clients, and respectfully so. I mean, I've got my own monies invested in the market,
Well,
and
sure.
I don't like to see them reduce, but
No.
occasionally that's just what happens. And over the last few weeks, maybe 45 days, couple of months even, everybody's been anxious about what are these tariffs going to do to their retirement plans, and if you're in retirement, what's going to happen, and you know, is the Fed going to lower rates this year like they said they were going to do last year? So yeah, different things went into having the market sort of go through a reset, if you want to call it that. But over the last week, and especially today, as you alluded to, it looks like some of these deals are coming to fruition, and they're actually coming to fruition to our benefit. And when I say our, I mean the United States benefit, as far as being able to trade with other countries on maybe a little bit more of an even playing field. And the market's responding positively to that. I looked at the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P. They're both up considerably. Right before I came in here to sit down and do the podcast, I think the last number I saw on the Dow was up almost 1,100 points
Yeah.
for the day. So again, all of this uneasiness and anxiety that they like to give us every so often has maybe found its way through the system and dissipated. And now everybody can sit back, relax a little bit, because again, their 401ks or TSPs are starting to adjust back upward to where they were, maybe 30, 45, 60 days ago. And again, I strongly feel like, unless something really, really crazy happens, that before the end of the year, we'll probably have another positive year. Whether it'll be in the same, returns as we did in 23 and 24, I don't know. But Tony, I think I've mentioned this on the show before. One thing I always go back to, whenever I think there's like an 80, I think I've read this since 1970. There's like an 82% chance of a positive return for the year if we have a positive January. And this year we had a very positive January. And lo and behold, it looks like things are tracking to maybe have another positive year end, 6, 7 months down the road. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, It's always easier to talk to clients and about things when the market's up versus market being down. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. We both have smiles on our faces today, and it is much easier. But there's going to be more volatility. But like you always tell people out there,
Yeah.
don't panic. And this is the proof is in the pudding right here. I mean, people who were panicked in April when the market dropped a bit, and the news media said the sky is falling. Now, everything's rosy again, and it's just a few weeks
Yeah.
later, a couple of months later. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't panic.
Just hold on. I tell my clients when we have those conversations is that even going back to 07, 08, and 09 and, the financial crisis and things like that, the only people that got hurt were the people who panicked and sold when their accounts were at a loss. Those people who, just hung tight, waited it out, regrouped, their monies came back. They made money over the past 10 plus years. And it looks to be we've got a similar cycle that is happening on a much shorter term basis from earlier this year to now and going forward. At least I hope so, and I think all things point toward that. First quarter earnings for companies are coming out, and a lot of the companies are hitting their top and bottom line, which is very important because at the end of the day, that's what used to matter when you talked about market returns and things going on in the system and things of that nature right there. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good. What do you got for me today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, it's your show, Tony. Don't put it. If you ask me, we're going to be talking about pizza and music. So we better.
Hey, you know what? That's not a bad thing to talk about right there.
Yeah. Well, you were just at a big songwriters convention down there, songwriting festival down in Florida. I think that's neat. But let's stick to the topic. And you brought up a great topic to talk about today, and that's the psychology of retirement.
Yeah.
So, people, your identity in retirement, your purpose, money, there's a lot that plays into retirement. And some people really let it stress them out, or they don't know how to deal with it. Right.
Boy, that's that is a true statement right there. I mean, retirement's different for everybody, Tony. And people ask me a lot. I mean, I'm 65. People ask me, Tony, when are you going to retire? And I try to be as straightforward and as honest with people as I possibly can. But, right now in my life, Tony, the answer to that question is, again, providing my health stays good. I don't know if I'll ever fully retire because I enjoy doing this job. Well, you say if you enjoy doing what you're doing, you don't work a day in your life. So I don't know if I should call it a job or not, but I enjoy doing this. I think somehow over the last, I don't know, 50, 70 or 100 years, we sort of backed ourselves into this idea that when you hit 60 or 65, you've got to retire. And I know there's industries that again will force you out, so to speak. But part of what we talk about retirement being is doing what you want to do when you want to do it with the people that you want to do it with and enjoying it. Well, what if what you're doing at work or your profession is what you enjoy and that's what you want to do? Then who says that, just because you hit a certain number in age that you should cut back, quit or do whatever the case may be. But I do know this, with a lot of people, there are probably three major points that when facing retirement, people become a bit anxious about. Loss of identity, what's going to be their purpose in retirement, and of course, not last but probably not least, is do they have the money to continue with the lifestyle that they become accustomed to?
Sure.
So yeah, if we want to maybe hit on each one of these in brief today or things like that, I'll be glad to. But when we talk about identity, Tony, I mean, people out there that their job is their identity. Their work is their identity. They've been a doctor or surgeon for 30 years, 40 years, and they're used to having people and patients and clients look at them and address them as, Dr. such and such and Dr. this and that. Well, they might still be called doctor when they retire, but guess what? It probably doesn't hold the same meaning as if,
Right.
they're in an operating room with a scalpel in their hand. So again, does the loss of that professional identity, is that something that they're going to be able to handle? They're going to have shifting roles, and
Mhm.
again, something we talk about in much detail with the number of clients that we help in retirement is, what are you going to do in retirement? What's going to be your routine? Please tell me that you're not going to get up every day and become a couch potato and watch Wheel of Fortune all day long. Because if that happens, guess what, Tony? This thing up here will start to go away. And then all of a sudden you're going to have health issues. You might have, you know, just all kinds of things. It's
Yeah.
just, again, it's just a situation to, you know, what are you going to do?
Right.
What's going
Well,
to be of interest?
identity, to finish up there, I really think that's important because I know my identity is wrapped up in what I do and I really love what I do. So as long as my voice holds out, I want to keep doing it. And I can see that being an issue, especially psychologically, if for all these years you were this thing and then all of a sudden you're not doing that anymore. That can be tough.
Yeah.
So, in your interaction with your coworkers, so you've really got to figure that out and redefine yourself or your self-worth. It's Your self-worth isn't necessarily tied to your 9 to 5 job or what you do. You're more than just that person, and I think that's important to note.
Oh, it's very important to know, and I think again, I think you just hit on it. Uh, can you separate your new self worth from your past? Again, a title, position,
Hmm.
whatever the case may be
Yeah.
with that, and I struggle with it, Tony. I'll be straight up with you, man. I know you mentioned here just a second ago about us being out of town for a few days,
Yep.
uh, and I think we were gone like 6 days. I'll be straight up with you, man. After about 3 or 4 days, I'm twiddling my thumbs and like, what I do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
what do I do? And
Yeah.
because again, I enjoy doing this vocation so much, but it does. It gives me purpose. It gives me drive. It gives me things to do. And if when I don't have that, then it becomes a situation of saying, okay, do you go play golf? Do you go play tennis? Do you go play pickleball? Do you go volunteer? But you've got to think about those other things that you're going to be doing in retirement to take up your time, because you're up 12, 14 hours a day. What are you going to do with it? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
important. So yeah, I think that identity thing is important. I think we still need to have a sense of purpose.
Oh, that's a
uh,
big this
you
might be the
know
biggest, right?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, you got to feel like, hey, look, whatever I am or whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm trying to become to be or what I have become, what's that purpose? What's going to be my impact? And maybe it's mentoring younger people. I've got some of my colleagues, and it's sort of already interested me, and I haven't really researched into it or this, that, and the other, but you know, maybe you go to your local college or junior college or something like that and say, hey, look, I got 40 years experience in financial services. Maybe there's a class I can teach, or maybe I can give some insight to younger people about what it's like to run a business and do other things like that. So you got to look at the opportunities and things like that can exist out there. um,
Yeah, reason to get
don't
up in the morning, right?
get up in the morning. Don't feel like you're aimless. Just feel like, and Tony, I get this all the time. I've got some clients who just say, Tony, I'm so busy in retirement, I don't know how I had time to even have a job before. And then you
Right.
see these other folks, and you're just like trying to figure out, how to feel day to day to day to day. And
Hmm.
so again, everybody's different. No, nothing different than the way we are before we retire.
Sure.
It's a lot of the same things as you go into retire. But again,
Yeah.
I think that strong sense of purpose, Tony, in retirement leads to continuing to have good, strong cognitive
Yes.
skills and development, and again keeps you out of depression that I see affects some retirees from time to time.
Yeah. Well, when my grandfather Grandpa Bob, hit 100. He lived to 101. When he hit 100, he was still driving, still camping, still living independently on the farm.
Yeah.
And people asked him, they said, "How do you do it?" And he goes, "You got to keep going.
Yeah.
Just don't stop." So that's how he managed to, and he was mentally sharp up until, just a couple months before he passed.
And Tony, by saying that, I mean, farming is my background. My mom and dad were tenant farmers.
Yeah.
We grew up on like 500 acres, but I was around uncles and grandfathers and people in the community who were in their 50s and 60s and 70s back when I was growing up, and they were farmers. Retirement wasn't even a word in their vocabulary, because
Nope.
guess what, man?
Nope.
As long as their health was hanging
Yeah.
out, they got up each and every day, and whether it was tending to crops or to livestock or doing whatever needed to be done, they just continued to do it until a lot of times, just like you was talking about your grandfather, the good Lord came in and said, "Okay, your time's done." But it's not because they sat there and said, "I'm officially retired from doing whatever I'm doing." So again, that's a bit of my mindset from that standpoint of just, who says just because you hit a certain age number that you're just supposed to just hang it up and just say, "I'm done and out of here," and whatever the case may be. So, and again, I think that sense of purpose leads to having a better fulfillment. I think it cuts down on depression and mental illness and things like that, because again, you've got something that you're out there for, and then probably identity and purpose. But even in retirement, money is very important.
Well, it's the number one retirement fear people have, right? I mean, you've told me that before.
Do I have enough? Am I going to run out of money?
That's their fear. Yeah, running out of money in retirement. Yep.
And supporting the lifestyle they become accustomed to. In a lot of my seminars and workshops, Tony, I tell people all the time, I would love to be 30 years old again, but I don't want to have my bank account I had when I was 30 years old.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I was broke. Who was going back to being broke? You just sitting there trying to go day to day and make sure you had the bills paid and some food on the table for your family. But again, we become accustomed to a lifestyle that in a lot of ways is very much in line with the amount of income that we have coming in, the amount of wealth that we have that enables us to have the income and to do what we want to do when we want to do it. So just because we retire doesn't mean we want to step back from that lifestyle. So again, do you have that retirement plan in place that's going to say, from a very conservative standpoint, am I diversified enough? Do I have enough money's coming in from all avenues, whether it be Social Security, whether you be fortunate enough to have a pension? What am I taking off my portfolio? Should I redeem taxable assets before non-taxable assets? Should I convert, do Roth conversions, look at other charitable giving scenarios, whatever it might be? Having enough money is very, very important, no matter when retirement starts in your life. So these are things too that you have to make sure and have planned for. That is no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got some people when they get into retirement, and you've seen this, Tony, they're so paranoid about running out of money, they won't spend anything.
Oh my gosh.
That's one.
We have friend couples of ours who are retired, and I get it from my wife, who gets the ear of the wives of the retired, and it's just like one of their frustrations is that the husband is holding so tight to everything, afraid they're going to run out of money,
right?
That they don't get to go out and spend like they used to,
right?
And it causes it causes problems.
Oh,
So
of course it does. And the thing is you can't be irresponsible. You might have to, everyone in retirement, I don't care how much money you have or how little money you have. And Tony, as a financial advisor, you see this all the time. You're on a fixed income, no matter how
yeah,
much money you have or how little you have. There's X amount, right?
correct.
And hopefully you have some growth, so it's growing. But at the same time, you've got to constantly be taking money out because you're no longer getting a paycheck from a job typically. So
Correct.
unless you got some other form of mailbox money. But typically, most people they have what they have. It's going to grow a bit, but that's what they have to live on, and that just it paralyzes people in some circumstances, no matter how much they have. And I see it with I have a relative. I'm not going to name the person. It's
Oh,
one
come
of
on,
my
Tony. It's just you being you on the show here. Come on.
yeah.
Come on.
One of my in-laws is retired, about almost 90 years old,
Yeah.
has plenty of money,
Yeah.
right? I don't think there's a chance, even if they went into long-term care at $10,000 a month, don't think at this point they could possibly go through it.
Right.
And they constantly talk about how they don't have enough, oh, I can't do this with the kids or my grandkids because I can't spend that money, or I can't get this.
Yeah.
I need this, but I can't get it because I can't spend the money.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what do you mean? I have no idea.
Well, and again, Tony, it becomes a balancing act. I remember our minister one Sunday at church preached a sermon, and he said, he addressed it during the sermon. He said, I'm mainly speaking to the grandfathers and grandmothers out there right now. But he said, many of you all have lived abundant lives. You've done very well for yourselves, and you've accumulated an immense amount of wealth. And that wealth is probably going to be distributed to your children and grandchildren once you pass. But may I encourage you not to do anything crazy or stupid or out of the ordinary, but maybe you should think about maybe passing along some of that wealth to your kids and grandkids sooner rather than
Yep.
later.
Yep.
Maybe you can then get to see the enjoyment that they get
Right.
from your hard work. And you know as well as I do, Tony, a lot of times when your kids or grandkids are in their teens or 20s or early 30s, man, they're struggling a whole heck of a lot more than they are when they get to be in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, look, why don't we help these people out, maybe earlier in life rather than later in life? And again, you don't have to go crazy with it or anything else like that, but it's something to take a look at. And
Yeah.
and
It is.
I know there's been generations. I know our parents' generation, always kept everything tight to the vest and stuff
Yep.
like that. I'll tell you a quick story, Tony, because I know we're probably running up against time. But I had a client whose father was also a client of mine. We actually helped him with the veterans benefit. But she told me this. She's probably was in her mid 60s. Her dad was like early 90s, but
Mm-hmm.
still was pretty good shape. And they went down to their Florida home, and she said we were sitting having dinner one night overlooking the bay. And he said I looked over and said my dad was crying. And she said, "Dad, what's wrong?" And he said we should have been enjoying this all through our life. Said I was brought up from a standpoint that all you do is save, 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 so you don't be broke.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, I forgot that enjoying your wealth is something that you should be doing as well. Is enjoying it for myself.
Sure.
The mother was living, but she was in memory care with full blown Alzheimer's, and he was sad that he just basically said, we accumulated a great amount of wealth that's going to go to you and your sister, and you all will get to enjoy it to a certain extent. But he said, I just wish maybe I had done things a little bit different.
Sure.
And smelled the roses a little bit more for yourself and for your
Sure.
mother and all of us along the way, instead of just preparing for that day that actually never showed up, of being out of money and broke. And
Yeah.
so
You
again,
can't take it with you.
it doesn't mean you go out and blow the bank, but it also
No.
means
No.
that it's okay. it's
Well,
okay to enjoy it a little bit.
and the solution to that issue comes by working with somebody like yourself, having a plan.
Yeah.
So you've gone through the retirement process, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of times over the years with various people. You've seen everything, and the rest of us are only going to go through this once in our lives. But you can say, hey, look, you have enough. You can retire now. You can, if you want to do things while you're still active with your grandkids, you can do that. Or, nope, you better hold on to this, where you're at. You can retire, but you can't get crazy, things like that. So to know where you're at and what you can and can't spend, you need to work with a financial professional. You have to have a plan in place. And if you don't have a plan, it's just guesswork. And then it's just, well, I don't want to spend anything just in case. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be worried about it every night either. I think that's a great point you made. So all three, the psychology of retirement, your identity can be wrapped up in your job, so that can be tough. You need to have a purpose to stay mentally active and physically active, and you
Right.
need to have a plan for your money. And that's where you come in. And I know you kind of act as a therapist to a lot of your clients, so you've covered all three of these topics with your clients.
Sometimes they need to be a therapist to me, my friend. You know
Yeah.
that. So it's part of it.
I
But
thought that's what I was here for.
yeah, well, yeah, you too. You
Walk
too.
you through it.
But yeah,
Um,
all of those things are very important. And again, it's just part of putting together Tony. I think we all along, we always look and search for specialists and people that are at the top of their profession, in other areas of our life, whether it be medical or legal or looking for a mentor in whatever profession you're in that's been there, done that, and trying to learn from them. And again, I think people today are better than what they used to be, but seeking out a specialist, people that understand what it means to put together retirement plans day in and day out that will stand the test of time. And when I mean stand the test of time, I mean, to age 90, 95, 100 years of age. Those are important pieces, and they've got to be flexible. They've got to be put together such that you have an increasing income stream, because we all know inflation eats into our monies. And these are things that are very, very important. So, yeah, along with the psychology of retirement, you've got to have the planning of retirement, and hopefully, that's some things that we do very well for people.
Yeah. Well, let our listeners out there know, Tony, how they can get a hold of you to set up that no charge, no obligation consultation if they have questions or want to get a plan in place.
Yeah, there's several ways. You can go out to our website, arobertsassociates.com. Again, arobertsassociates.com. You can email us at info@abundantretirementplanning. Again, info@abundantretirementplanning.com. Call the office, toll free, 888-955-3665. Again, 888-955-3665. And one of our team members here will get into my calendar, set up a time for us to have a conversation. And again, that's all it is. The first meeting, we have a conversation to see if you need help and if I can help you. Because if neither one of those two things exists, then we're sort of just having a cup of coffee and saying hello to each other. But if you've got some things out there that in the back of your mind, it's like, hey, I think I'm okay, but maybe it could be better or something like that. Having a second set of eyes take a look at something, Tony, never hurts. So that's what we do. That's what we do.
All right. And that number again, our listeners can call 888-955-3665. That's 888-955-3665. Or go to arobertsassociates.com. Tony, great show today. Loved it. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Abundant Retirement with our host, Anthony Roberts.
Have a good day, Tony. Thanks, buddy.